All right, there we go, guys. So it's all set up on that part. Cool. All right, we are recording. Let's see here. Welcome to call, everyone. Hey guys, thank you so much for the HEMPIRE Monday night webinar. We're super excited for inviting you guys over. Let me get Mr. Titus all set up. Okay, let me go ahead and unmute everyone. All right, guys, I'm super excited for today, especially what's going on. This is an exciting day. I have Dr. Titus and Dr. Becky on the call, on the webinar tonight. And I know Stuart doesn't have very much time, so I want to go ahead and introduce Dr. Stuart right away. And take it away, Dr. Stuart.
Fantastic. Well, great to be on. Hopefully we're on the air and running here. It's been a tremendous day. We've had some wonderful press and media interest in our developing story of the study of epilepsy with Dr. Saul Garza. This was in Mexico City. We had some very interesting study with epilepsy patients, and we'll be announcing tomorrow the results from Dr. Garza's study, which shows that 86% average seizure reduction among this patient population of very advanced form of epilepsy. Certainly great things for our Real Scientific Hemp Oil products, which of course are the base products throughout Canada. And today we're going to just do my usual kind of review of some of the great things that have been going on in the field of cannabis therapeutics, some of the medicinal aspects of cannabis, cannabinoids, etc. And so interesting, today I've just been interviewed by a couple of news and media sources, and you know, ever since the beginning of recorded history, cannabis in one form or another has been used as a medicine. Oils, tinctures, etc. date back to about 8,000 BC, the beginning of recorded history in ancient China, and you know, for centuries it's been used. Remedies, therapies have been passed along for generations. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we had many pharmaceutical companies with cannabis-based preparations. Certainly it was part of the European as well as the American pharmacopoeia, right up until the Marijuana Tax Act back in 1937, and its unfortunate removal from the U.S. pharmacopoeia in 1942. But interestingly enough, even though we had this marijuana prohibition, continuing research on cannabis and cannabinoids was going on. In fact, in 1940, a wonderful scientist named Dr. Roger Adams here in the U.S. actually first isolated cannabidiol, and his patent was offered in 1940 to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. It was stamped in 1942. And so truly we owe a debt of great gratitude to Dr. Roger Adams for his first isolation of cannabidiol. Now coming along further, 1964, Dr. Raphael McCollum actually was the discoverer of THC, which we all know is a psychoactive cannabinoid that comprises hemp's sister plant, marijuana, and certainly much marijuana today is grown for its very high concentration of THC. It gives you that high type effect, which many of the young stoner crowd certainly enjoys, but certainly there are many who enjoy the medicinal aspects of CBD, which can be grown in a hemp plant, again, without the psychoactivity. And we certainly think that this is very beneficial because therapeutically, if I may speak within this closed loop network, certainly we can take a much higher dose of CBD than we can THC. For example, 5 milligrams THC probably knocked me out on the couch for a good 8, 10, 12 hours. You know, this morning I took 50 milligrams of CBD. During a couple of interviews today, I took another 25, 50 milligrams, and I'll probably take 50 milligrams more tonight. It's been the greatest thing for me. Certainly, personally, I've had incredible, experience with an unfortunate nerve-related disorder, and certainly have overcome some really significant challenges. I kind of got on the difference between marijuana and hemp. I think if we look at the cannabis plant as maybe being the parent plant, if you will, the two offspring, marijuana with your high concentration of THC, very little of any industrial use. And on the other side, CBD with tremendous medical use that can be grown in an industrial hemp plant. There are probably 50,000 plus industrial uses for the hemp plant, everything from biomass for biofuels, your building and construction materials, your biocomposites, and the rest. It's absolutely amazing. They're even now making hemp batteries, and certainly we believe in the electrical properties of hemp because, okay, you've got a child who's right in the middle of a seizure episode. The parents take a drop of CBD oil placed under the child's tongue. In many instances, that seizure stops right in its tracks. It's so interesting. We don't have time for all the thousands of different chemical reactions. There's some type of an electrical or a cell signaling type process that seems to be at play. And certainly we're very excited to look at the future, not only on the chemical side for things that will satisfy the medical community, but also on the electrical side of the body, because we truly are electrochemical beings. And certainly I had a great career in physiotherapy, just applying a low-level electrical stimulation back to the human body. Well, certainly in the mid-1980s, we had a huge discovery. This was of the endogenous cannabinoid system that really comprises all of us individuals. This endogenous cannabinoid system may be the most profound discovery in the history of medicine. Certainly, it's something that this large self-regulatory system just governs a huge amount of functions in the human body: your mood, sleep, appetite, hormone production, your digestion of food, even into your metabolism. And with the discovery, a huge number of receptor sites expressed throughout the body. The CB1 receptor in the brain, the most widely expressed of all neurotransmitter receptor sites. You also find your CB1 receptors in the spinal column, various internal organs such as your liver, etc. And then your CB2 receptors are mostly in your gut, the viscera, the internal organs, which help to relate to immune function, etc. In the brain and also throughout the body, there are these special kind of protein receptors. Technically, they're called the G protein coupled receptor sites. This is what Dr. Oren Davidsky accredits CBD's action to, or CBD's effect on this G protein coupled receptor site is really the response, or what is responsible for the decrease in the seizure episodes in many of these children. Again, we'll have some nice press coming out tomorrow on this. I had several interviews. This is coming out of Mexico City. Dr. Saul Garza will be presenting his basically research, which was used with HempMed's RSHOX product. This similar product is available in Canada, the exact same product, just a different label, the pure CBD oil. So very exciting for Canada listeners to look and watch this particular study and the results that will be announced. Anyway, getting back to the great number of receptor sites, I mentioned this G protein coupled receptor site is also responsible for the action of 800 of our genes within the human body. So this represents about 4% of our overall genetic sequence. Nonetheless, we've had some very good success anecdotally with our products with certain types of genetically inherited epilepsy disorders and other disorders. So there's something very profound going on with the CBD right to the very base level that comprises us. In the brain, a huge number of receptor sites, both on your hippocampus as well as amygdala. Don't mean to get too technical about this, but certainly it seems that CBD is the only cannabinoid that's been able to show evidence, at least in animal test rats and laboratory setting, of what's called neurogenesis, or the body's ability to regenerate new healthy brain, nerve, neuronal cells. I think this is certainly quite exciting for the future and the research. And speaking of research, For those of you who are new to Canaway and CBD and this whole movement, I should really say that there's some great research done here in the United States. Going back to 1999, a team that included Nobel Prize winning laureate Dr. Julius Axelrod started to study with cannabinoids on various potential benefits for the human body. Their research was actually then published at the U.S. government National Institutes of Health level to the point they applied for a U.S. government patent that was actually awarded and stamped in 2003, October of 2003. And this is U.S. government patent number 6630507. I know I usually say in some of my presentations we all knew this song many years ago, 8675309. Well, the number you want to remember in cannabis science is 6630507, sometimes called the 507 patent. This describes cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. On the antioxidant side, anti-inflammatory side, we've had tremendous anecdotal success with heart, cardiovascular, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, even certain types of cancer, which all fit under this metabolic syndrome. And many doctors will normally do your or have your blood laboratory work done, and many of us will have elevated inflammatory markers, which magically seem to come down to a more normal level with 6 to 8 weeks of CBD type therapy. We've seen this with interleukin-2, interleukin-6, C-reactive protein, tumor necrosis factor for those medical people out there. Your A1C markers have come down with diabetes. Your ESR or erythrocyte sedimentation rate scores have come down with the rheumatoid arthritis patients. It's been quite interesting. We think that certainly a CBD formulation for metabolic syndrome conditions, including diabetes, is very close. We'd love to someday be able to actually make claims about our product. And certainly we're working to do some of this research so that we might be able to eventually do that. Anyway, metabolic syndrome and inflammatory conditions seem to be tremendously helped with regular CBD therapy. And then on the neuroprotective side, great benefit for your neurodegenerative patients, your Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even PTSD, multiple sclerosis. But we've also had great anecdotal success with children, particularly in countries of Latin America where our product is accepted with doctor prescription for the treatment of refractory epilepsy in both Mexico as well as in Brazil. And now Paraguay, actually. We have several other countries looking to come on board in the Latin American regions. We think there's great benefit for not only these unfortunate epilepsy children, but also diabetes is quite rampant among this Latin American population, and we think we may have some interesting results there. Certainly, we believe in this, what we call clinical endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome, and since basically cannabis, hemp in particular, has been eradicated from our diet since 1937. Here we've been about 3.5 generations, and many of us are cannabinoid deficient. It's actually been proven scientifically that patients who experience some of these very difficult to treat medical conditions, things such as fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, migraine headache, inflammatory bowel syndrome, all seem to be cannabinoid deficient. We start to supplement with plant-based cannabinoids, and that brings our endogenous cannabinoid levels back up to maybe a more normal level, allowing the body to achieve a better state of homeostasis. Of course, many of these patients also move to a much higher level of overall health and wellness, and some have even been able to overcome certain difficult to treat conditions and challenges. So it's quite exciting. Certainly, we're very excited about gathering some of the anecdotal evidence over time. Away from this, we certainly see great benefit for the pharmaceutical side. We've actually had 2 investments. Our parent company in 2 pharmaceutical development interests, both Axim Biotechnologies that trades on the OTC markets, ticker symbol AXIM for those who want to start following the story, and then Canna Life Sciences, which is a current private company, hopefully soon to be public. But Canna Life has 2 license agreements from our NIH to commercialize or to develop this 507 patent. And two of the indications, well, one that I think many of us can relate to is a traumatic head injury, or CTE, which seems to be the industrial disease of the NFL. So we really believe that individuals should be taking at least 50 milligrams of CBD on a daily basis just for regular routine maintenance, overall health and wellness, just like to take your vitamin C, etc. Hopefully someday we'll have a recommended daily allowance of about 50 milligrams per day. I think this is quite exciting. We're looking to actually have this developed because these are essential and vital nutrients for the optimal functioning of the human body. And without them, we will all eventually start to experience some health-related challenges. Unfortunately, some of this right at very early age with today's children, and of course a huge prevalence now of autism, epilepsy, and other conditions that basically when I was a child was totally unheard of. And it's just a shame. You go to every neighborhood, street, corner, what have you, and probably in a whole neighborhood you might have 3, 5, 7 families with autistic or epilepsy type children. It's just a total shame, and hopefully we can potentially be able to find solutions for these challenging conditions. And not only is it very beneficial for the young ones, but also locally here in San Diego, we've had some great research by Dr. David Schubert regarding cannabinoids seeming to be able to help at least the early stages of Alzheimer's and the dementia. Dr. Schubert's research was published last June, and basically was the first study to show that cannabinoids help not only reduce inflammation in the brain, but also reduce the buildup of a very toxic protein called beta amyloid, which is the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. And this is great research. Dr. Schubert actually has been very vocal in the last couple of weeks in the press and media, saying how the federal government is kind of stifling his further research. Now, for the past 30 years, we've had pharmaceutical companies all around try to develop some type of medication which would try to halt the unfortunate downward progression of Alzheimer's and dementia. Once this gets set in motion, it's an unfortunate downward situation that hasn't been anything yet to be able to reverse this. Well, Dr. Schubert's research, I think, was groundbreaking. And then just 2 weeks ago, we saw additional research from Stanford University showing that the onset of Alzheimer's dementia is really due to an internal or an endogenous cannabinoid deficiency. Absolutely incredible that this is just stuff that still the law enforcement side of the federal government states that all type of cannabis products are Schedule I federally controlled substances with no medicinal use, and yet the research side, my gosh, just shows some incredible potential for the future of cannabinoid-based therapeutics. We're certainly involved with all aspects of this. We're thrilled to have these wonderful nutraceutical products available for Canaway representatives. Obviously, I can go on and on talking about some of the great benefits. I've personally had wonderful success with our products overcoming a very severe nerve-related disorder going back many years. It's been remarkable. I couldn't live without CBD, and certainly look forward to continuing my course of therapy and presenting some study from my own personal experience of how this has been amazing to help me through many of life's challenges. Certainly, we look forward to ongoing clinical study and research to maybe at some point make claims about our particular products. Can't thank you all enough for your attention this evening. I think I've kind of run on maybe 15 minutes or so. I'm glad to speak more or take questions or what have you. Certainly appreciate the opportunity here, Blake.
Hello, everybody.
What's up, Blake? How you doing, sir?
You're in good hands with Dr. Titus, everybody. Thanks, Stu, for taking some time.
It's been great to be with you. We definitely look forward to supporting efforts here locally in California and Southern
God,
California.
Hey!
People are Brad Tails.
What's up, Brad?
All right, see you all in Anaheim in a few weeks.
We look forward to it, and those of you in Denver, we'll certainly see you there this weekend, right?
Yes, indeed, indeed. Thank you so much, Dr. Titus. I mean, we had some questions. One person asked, Audrey, what health advantage does THC have that CBD does not have, and why do we need the THC in our products?
Well, certainly a great question, and we certainly appreciate that because we truly think there's great benefit to all cannabinoids. Now, THC, of course, has a little bit of a psychoactive effect. But here in the U.S., we undeniably see that in the states where we have medical cannabis-friendly laws, that the Medicare Part D expenditures, that's your prescription drug coverage expenditures, are at least 25 to 30% lower than in the non-cannabis states. So what this implies is that many people are switching from, say, their opioid-based medications, trying botanical cannabis, having great success. Again, since it's a natural botanical product, you don't have any real side effects. Of course, you do have the temporary psychoactive effect, which for many severe chronic pain patients, we think that this is something that seems to work quite well. Can't really deny the anecdotal evidence that's growing, and certainly when you look at Medicare Part D expenditures, people are enjoying it. And certainly we have a huge amount of stress in our society today, and anything that can be something to help bring that stress down, help people cope much better. THC and cannabis has certainly been proven to be 114 times safer than alcohol. We see this Colorado experiment going extraordinarily well. You have, lowered crime rates. You have not bar fights breaking out, but you have people hugging each other in the street and having a great time. So certainly, having been involved in pain management, part of my therapeutic career, I see the benefit of this. And certainly, we're excited to, have one of our pharma development companies be researching a combination of THC and CBD for multiple sclerosis patients to help control their pain and muscular spasticity. We'd like to believe this will be the first cannabis-based medication that will actually have an indication for pain. We're very excited about the future of pain management being maybe a high-dose cannabinoid, low-dose opioid type situation. It does seem that THC and particularly cannabinoids in the acid form, when you smoke a joint, for example, let's say you have THC in the product, and basically this is in an acid form. You smoke and you heat that acid form, and it decarboxylates it, or it turns it over into the active form. And certainly this seems to have a more direct lock and key effect on the CB1 receptor site. Interestingly enough, we can get a similar type lock and key effect with our green product, or what in hemp meds is our RSHO green. This is part of our premium hemp oil blend. But again, this lock and key effect causes tremendous central nervous system relaxation. So your THC, of course, people use it to help sleep at night, help control pain, etc. But interestingly enough, our RSHO green seems to have a very similar effect, but without the psychoactivity. So anyway, these are into a little bit more of the technical aspects in nature, especially for some of the young new people coming on board with us. But certainly want to say that there's benefit to THC, but many people are preferring the non-psychoactive or the more medicinal side, if you will. But certainly we're very excited about raising the overall dialogue and the overall bar about overall cannabinoids, and certainly THC has its time and place, as does CBD.
Awesome. And we have Dr. Becky. Are you there?
Here. Hi.
Awesome. Feel free to ask Dr. Titus. Now we have two special doctors here, and go ahead and ask Dr. Titus, Dr. Becky, any questions.
I think a lot of people ask if they're already healthy, they feel that they're in good health and their weight is good, they're not dealing with any major medical conditions. Should those people be taking CBD? And I know how I answer that, but I'm just kind of curious how you answer that.
Well, certainly I tried to get into that a little bit in the presentation here, just about the endogenous cannabinoid system and the huge number of receptor sites throughout the human body. Certainly we're taught to take our vitamins and minerals on a daily basis just to help, supplement our overall health and wellness. And certainly to do that with cannabinoids, we think that, 50 milligrams of non-psychoactive CBD is tremendous. Of course, we have, a huge receptor network, both in the brain as well as throughout the spinal column, your central nervous system, then through your internal organs. And certainly, if you want to support the largest self-regulatory system in the human body, we believe these plant-based cannabinoids are truly the answer. Now, our bodies actually make internal or endogenous cannabinoids, and these, unfortunately, are very quickly degraded by certain enzymes and enzymatic activity. But when you start to supplement with plant-based cannabinoids, they're not subject to that enzymatic degradation. Thus, they have a much longer shelf life in the body and can be used a little bit more therapeutically. So very technically, we're meant to live in symbiosis with a hemp plant. I think if you had to live on just one food throughout the rest of your life, that would likely be the hemp seed, because it has a tremendous nutritional profile. Your essential fatty acids, which again, you have to get these from your diet because that's why they're called essential. But this is great brain food for you. Your essential amino acids, and all your amino acids, a complete profile, which helps support good, healthy protein and muscle building. And then tremendous immunoglobulins, immune boosting, immune supporting proteins that certainly are the body's first stage of defense against any harmful invaders. So they're great reasons just to take 50 milligrams of CBD daily for this particular reason. I should maybe also mention now, many parents, of course, and mothers in particular, some interesting research showing that when they look at autism children, there's at least an 80%, if not a higher correlation with autistic mothers and their children both being technically IgG1 deficient. This is immunoglobulin gamma 1, and the children who are IgG1 deficient have at least an 80% higher chance and likelihood of developing autism. And certainly we believe if the mother were IgG1 sufficient, we're getting these natural nutrients in the diet, that this incidence of autism being passed along to the child, at least the IgG1 deficiency would become non-existent. So this is just another case of nutrition against disease, if you will.
Yep. Thank you. And I have one other question, and then we can turn it back to Andrew. Last week, I had a chance to talk a little bit about the bee bong. So just from your opinion on our Revive products, what happens when we put the bee bong with the CBD?
Well, certainly, I didn't really get to mention a lot about the constituency of our products, and so thank you for bringing that back to my attention. Now, our products basically are natural botanical in nature, and of course, we contain a very high concentration of the non-psychoactive cannabinoid, CBD. And we also have another huge profile of other cannabinoids in trace quantity, 80 to 100 different cannabinoids. And then we have a huge number of additional plant materials, things such as terpenoids, flavonoids, plant waxes, chlorophyll. And these all act together synergistically to produce what we call a magnified or an entourage effect. So when we add other herbs synergistically, and these are, time-proven herbs that, date back to royal families over in Korea many centuries. And certainly when you add this with CBD, we like to think we get an even greater magnified or an even better, or what you might call a super entourage effect. I certainly, love our Revive line. You've got a morning product, you've got an evening product. I think that works quite well. Certainly, we love our topical application salve, which just helps to penetrate some of the benefits of CBD in through the skin surface. So we certainly believe that the combination of CBD with some of these other beneficial natural botanical herbs. I know it's something that 200 years ago, all doctors were great botanists because their medicine came from plants. And we kind of got away from that, but now I think slowly the pendulum is coming back, because we're seeing certainly with the results we're going to announce tomorrow in Mexico City with Dr. Saul Garza and his amazing research, that our natural botanical product getting far better results than the pharmaceutical alternative. And of course, with a pharmaceutical, you have one or two active ingredients. With our natural botanical product, we believe we have about 500 active ingredients, if you will, that all synergistically act together to produce this magnified effect, which certainly seems to be far outdistancing what's happening with the pharmaceutical alternative. And further, let me just say, if you don't mind my taking the stage for those 2 seconds here, but certainly the study and results that we've seen in Mexico City have had zero side or adverse effects, where if you look at the pharmaceutical alternative, 79% of the children had some type of an adverse effect. 30% had a serious enough adverse effect to where they actually dropped out of the studies. So, comparing apples to oranges, I mean, gosh, it's just, a layup. I mean, certainly, without the side effects, I mean, gosh, I mean, every young child, for example, who's at risk for a head injury, your up and coming high school football players, your hockey players, your women who are field hockey or equestrian riders, anyone who's at risk for a head injury, my gosh, you should be taking at least 50 milligrams of CBD daily. This is a matter of course. Great study from Torrance Medical Center in the South Los Angeles area, basically showing that young, California children who were involved in unfortunate auto accidents where they suffered a traumatic head injury, the regular cannabis users, and because it's California, many of them had greater access to cannabis, but the regular cannabis users, and just from a couple of milligrams a day, maybe on a hit from a joint or whatever, my gosh, these young cannabis users were 80% more likely to survive a traumatic head injury.
Wow.
And it's presumably because they have this second football helmet or this extra layer of neuroprotection that's always with them. And gosh, my child, I would definitely be given 50 milligrams of CBD a day because, kids are kids. They just do crazy things. And unfortunately, in my physiotherapy clinics, I saw the unfortunate outcome of some of these, not so well thought out endeavors. But certainly, believe that this is something that, I think over time we'll see some anti-aging benefits. I think the children that are regular CBD users are going to far exceed in their math and other developmental skills throughout. I just think they're going to be able to absorb a much higher level of education. Certainly myself, I know I used to never be able to, read through a full clinical study start to finish before I started taking CBD, and now, my gosh, I'm able to, go through 2 or 3 of these things at a time. So my abilities have, continue to improve over time, and I certainly like to believe that, if a young child was on this throughout their life, my gosh, what a beautiful life they'd have.
Awesome. And, I'm so glad you said that, Dr. Titus, and thank you so much. And before I go, I have one more question. As someone asked me, for someone that's healthy and someone that's sick, as well as what age and how can they take the CBD?
Well, we certainly, had a broad range and a great appeal. Of course, more sensational, I guess, if someone is ill or having, let's say a child with unfortunate epileptic seizure disorders, and all of a sudden they've overcome those challenges and move to a higher level of overall health and wellness. So obviously that's a great thing, and we're very excited about that. But the long-term preventative things are what things that let's just say someone who is maybe genetically predisposed to developing Alzheimer's, and we took a big patient population of that, gave them CBD for 20 years. And all of a sudden, they started when they're in their 40s, and about the time they're 60, they're expecting to have some type of difficulties. And all of a sudden, if instead of having those mental declines and difficulties, if they're actually, going to graduate school or doing something kind of like I've done, I think would be tremendous. So, some of this research is going to have to take place over a very long and extended period of time. Certainly, I've been on CBD now for a good 4.5, almost 5 years, and I wouldn't miss it. If I don't take my CBD in the morning and go out and play a round of golf, I can notice that my putting, my fine motor skills aren't quite as good as if I had my little hit of CBD in the morning, for example. Certainly, we believe that this huge internal endogenous cannabinoid system can be supplemented with 50 milligrams a day. We'll certainly work with our future pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic studies to be able to more specifically determine how much product you need per day. But we have many, very young children, just a couple of months old, who start to have these seizure disorders, start to take our product and feel it's quite safe. CBD has been shown safe in quantities up to 1,500 milligrams per day. So I think certainly you can't really overdose on it or anything like that. We have many adults, 50 milligrams is maybe more of a maintenance dose. 150 to 250 milligrams might be more of a therapeutic dose. I can kind of mention that in this closed loop network circle here. Children, the study that this great doctor out of Mexico I mentioned earlier, Dr. Garza, has been doing, some of his children were on, 6, 8, 10 milligrams CBD daily and had some phenomenal results. So I can't say, just even a little bit has been very, very beneficial. It also seems that, of course, your animals in nature, your horses, dogs, cattle, fish, etc., all have this endogenous cannabinoid system as well. And their, metabolism are so fantastic that really, maybe 1 to 2 milligrams of CBD a day, and you'll see tremendous benefit with aging pets and others with other health challenges seem to overcome those challenges as well. We're working to develop a pet line, and of course we're looking to develop a whole hemp line as well, maybe a hemp seed, hemp protein powder, et cetera, just for future reference on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't want to take up too much of your time, Dr. Titus, and I know you have to go for another call, but thank you so much for having you. It's such a pleasure, and I'm super excited, especially going out, hanging out with you at corporate. I love this, the premium hemp oil. This is incredible, and this product was the one that was over in Brazil that helped the little child that had 60, 100 seizures a day. Is that right?
Well, yes, we were very fortunate to be able to bring our product into Brazil. This is the real scientific hemp oil, or perhaps product that might be more available on the HempMeds website. But certainly that's the base for this particular product. The product that you held in your hand there is a combination of our real scientific hemp oil, blue and green products. And but yes, the RSHO basically was the product that helped to legalize our product in the country of Brazil, going back to April of 2014. A young family, a child who had this terrible genetic form of epilepsy, technically called CDKL5 epilepsy. It's named for the defective CDKL5 gene, characterized by hundreds of seizure episodes per week. Within a very short order, the young child on our product became totally seizure-free. This was a tremendous development that mother in Brazil found out from a mother in Dallas, Texas, who had a similar child with CDKL5 epilepsy. They searched all over the world for anything that might possibly help. They came across real scientific hemp oil. They controlled the seizure disorders so well that they posted on their Facebook page of some of the success. Mother in Brazil picked it up. Long story short, our product soon became legalized in the country of Brazil because the regulatory authority and Visa mentioned that it would be totally inhumane for us to keep this potential product from this child. And the child had this unfortunate type of refractory epilepsy, which just was resistant to pharmaceutical medications, but magically it was controlled by our product. And I mentioned earlier about this receptor site in the brain that controls about 800 genes. Well, it certainly seems that from these children's anecdotal story that we're having great success on that CDKL5 gene. I'm very excited about maybe future research with our local biotech group called Illumina that does the human genomic sequencing to more specifically delineate how these gene actually works with CDKL5 epilepsy. But I should also mention the research from Dr. Sean McAllister, California Pacific Medical Center, showing that CBD, at least in the Petri dish, when you put in metastatic breast cancer cells, CBD actually switches off a defective gene, technically the ID1 gene. Pretty amazing stuff. And if this can translate through from the Petri dish to the human model, we may be sitting on some very interesting research over the coming months and years. Awesome.
That's what's exciting about it. And I would say, look, this is like the best kept secret. Really the best kept secret.
It has been for quite a while. It's the cat's coming out of the bag, if you will. Certainly, we're excited that U.S. government level, there's research going on around the globe. Depression research out of Spain, great research in Italy, over in Europe. Israel, a hotbed for clinical research. We just started our research program with Dr. Garza and some other universities, institutions in Mexico City. We'll be doing similar in Brazil. Our biotech group in the Netherlands has a clinical study and research, which one arm of that multiple sclerosis study will also be done here in the U.S. in Boston, Massachusetts. So that's quite exciting as well.
That's one thing. I know Big Pharma, they're afraid of us because of the fact that it does 50,000 things as hemp. And one thing for sure, always people ask me, well, will it be available on medical grade as for doctors? I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but you are a doctor. And what's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, certainly there's the pharmaceutical version, and certainly we believe, someone who's had a traumatic head injury or, very debilitating medical challenge, things such as multiple sclerosis, yeah, you might need the pharmaceutical version with that extra pack and punch, but certainly, at least on a preventative side, my gosh, 50 milligrams CBD daily. And of course, we're seeing great success with anecdotal story and various avenues of potential research. I think
Awesome.
there are many countries around the world who are more accepting of a natural botanical product and as a more medicinal. So I think we'll certainly start there, but once we have enough energy and momentum, we think that could easily translate back to the U.S., who's very much pharmaceutical, very anti-botanical, but I think even will come to change our evil ways very soon, as Santana would say.
There you go. That's awesome. And again, I tell everyone, look, we can't treat, diagnose, or cure anyone. Our body's a miracle. And that's one thing, like you said, it's our body needs 50 milligrams a day, even if you're healthy. And imagine driving a car without oil. Sooner or later, that car's going to break down. And like Dr. Titus said, this is incredible for our body to have every single day, whether you're super healthy or whether you're even ill. And so that's a blessing right there. And thank you, Dr. Titus, so much for this call. Pleasure for that. And let me go ahead and bring our buddy, Jeff. Are you on the line?
What do you want me to do?
Jeff. Oh, there we lost him right there. Let me see Dr. Becky. Dr. Becky, are you online?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. You feel free to ask Dr. Titus any other questions before we let him go.
I think we covered a lot of things. One thing that's been coming up is about in pregnancy and breastfeeding. You just go to OBGYN and ask them, or how do you handle that situation?
Well, this is something, of course, that we find that a mother's breast milk is very well expressed with cannabinoids. So it's really the first food a mother feeds to the child. I know there hasn't been a lot of study and research on this aspect, but certainly since we produce these endogenous cannabinoids, and particularly the one that's called 2-AG, is very well expressed in the mother's breast milk, we certainly believe that there is no harm that can be done, and only good things can happen. We've seen in like the country of Jamaica, a very underprivileged families and children that are born, but the mothers that take cannabis oil, even these underprivileged children seem to have the mental capabilities and capacities of families that have been schooled in educational material. Mother and father are doctors or PhDs. And, certainly expect the child to have some of the same genetics, but it's so interesting that even the underprivileged children who are mothers who take this cannabis oil seem to be on par and able to handle just as much schooling and information, assimilate that, learning vocabulary, etc., at a very similar age. We've recently had one of our friends, a Canaway distributor, have birth to a young child. The mother had been taking CBD throughout the pregnancy. The child, actually the father had, I believe, 5 or 6 children born previously. Every one of them had special needs, had to be incubated, and other medical challenges. This child was born perfectly, without any problems, complications. They're at home with the child, developing well. No special attention needed. I think within 36 hours, both the mother and child were home from the hospital. Very encouraging for natural botanical products taken by pregnant mothers. Certainly, I mentioned the IgG1 deficiency with autism. So I think certainly at some point we'll come around to saying, yeah, my gosh, every pregnant mom maybe needs 100 milligrams of CBD daily.
Nice. Nice. Awesome. Awesome. And one person asked me one question, and I told him, look, we can't cure, diagnose, or treat, but there's been studies on CBD. What are your thoughts on the studies on CBD with someone that has tumors?
Well, you know, again, this is something that there's some very early stage research. I mentioned Dr. Sean McAllister, the ID1G metastatic breast cancer. Also some interesting research with CBD by Dr. McCallum, University of South Carolina, on leukemia cells. Again, leukemia cells in a petri dish, all of a sudden CBD activates certain enzymatic pathways that seem to cause this programmed cell death or cellular apoptosis. I think probably the best story we have anecdotally would be one of our epilepsy children, Sadie Higuera. Those of you who have not seen the CBS Evening News story might just want to look that up on Google and get a link to it. I think our media people might be able to also provide a link to that story, but I think that speaks of volumes to the potential benefit for certain patients. Again, everything's at a very early stage. We can't say that this works or not, but certainly there have been people who have been using our product. Even people with their pets have been using our product, seem to have some interesting results. I know let's see, there's a melanoma study going on at University of Canberra in Australia, which is going to be the first cannabis-based study to look at this unfortunate melanoma situation. You know, I'm certainly excited about the future. I wish I could comment and say a little bit more, but certainly I've got a whole store of various studies showing potential benefit for things such as neuroblastoma. There was just a recent study by a pharma development group on CBD with it's called glioblastoma multiforme, very aggressive brain cancer, and people who took their combination product, THC and CBD, seem to live at least a year longer than the expectations. So have to be pretty impressed with that.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Titus. And I think we took
probably going along. I've got another call, a podcast coming up here just a little bit.
Thank you.
So, anyway, it's a great pleasure being with everybody. We certainly look forward to supporting the home team and efforts further.
Awesome.
Please let me know next time I'm a podcast or something. Definitely look forward to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. And Dr. Becky, thank you guys. And thank you, everyone. I hope you guys have a blessed day and take care. Bye-bye.